Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. This is another in my many part series of videos on Did I Overpay for a Restored Comic? And this one is also going to feature another major key that I'm sure you're probably aware of. It is Amazing Spider-Man number 13. And you can see that this is another restored comic. It's in a high grade, so it's relatively high grade. It's a 6.0, and you can see it's just a really sharp comic. It's quite pretty, actually. Um, it features the first appearance of Mysterio, so it's kind of cool. I really like Mysterio as a character. I like the whole Mysterio thing, especially because it has that kind of element of South Park, where there's a character in South Park that kind of mimics this. So I always like that whole Mysterio kind of character. And I love early Spider-Man comics. There's a certain charm to them. The 60s Spider-Man comics are quite cool. So this is a comic I really, really desired. It was up on auction, and I didn't want to overpay, actually. So I went into the auction with that insight. I said, okay, I know, it wasn't like some of the other ones that I bought where they were restored and I was like a little bit of a noob and I didn't know how much restoration impacted the price. I actually went into this being very savvy, okay? I went in knowing that restoration does kill the price, and I went in with a price in mind, how much I wanted to pay for this. And with that said, did I still overpay, or did I get a good deal? And it's always hit or miss with these things, but I'm going to show you what I did. So what happened was I did my research, and I'll show you how I did my research. So I went on to Go Collect, and I looked up how much does a 6.0 go for? Well, a 6.0 goes for 12.50. Okay, so 12.50. So I know that this is a restored, and it's a very slight restoration. I didn't read the notes to you, but I'll read them right now, and I'll just show you what the notes say. The notes on this book are very simple. Restoration includes spine split sealed to cover. So that's probably a little bit of glue that has just been sealed. There's no color touch. There's nothing other than that. So this is like a really solid book. Very, very slight restoration. Just a little bit of glue has been applied to the spine. Not a big deal. So with that said, I kind of had that, well, this is not that big of a deal. If I wanted to remove that restoration later, crack it open, remove the restoration, it wouldn't be a big deal to do that. And I could, maybe get a nice blue label and get a higher price for it if I was going to sell, which probably is not going to happen because I love my books too much. But with that in mind, I sort of said, okay, I know that restoration impacts the price. Well, let's see how much it impacts the price. So I go to my friendly chart here and I look, okay, it's a Silver Age comic. It's a 6.0 and it has slight restoration. Okay, so that cuts the price in half. Okay, so we got a price of 12.50, and 12.50 times half is 625. So what I did is I went to Heritage, where I bought the comic, and I paid. I put up my highest bid at 625. Now I managed to get the book at exactly, how much did I pay? I'm going to check here, 600. So I got it a little bit lower than my max bid. However, the max bid did not, I forgot that there was the buyer's premium, and the buyer's premium adds another 20%. So even though I paid, I bid 600, the buyer's premium brought up the price to 720. Ooh. So I overpaid on this one based on you know, this whole fair market value for it. But I didn't mind so much. I mean, it was about $100 overpay, but it's a beautiful comic. with just that little bit of restoration that can easily be removed, and it could be a blue label. Now, if I remove that restoration, it might actually not bring in the grade down too much. It might bring it down to even a 5. So it'd be worth $900. So it depends on how big that spine split is. If it's a really big spine split, it might bring it down to a 3, and you would see that it would, if it, or 3.5 maybe, 4 maybe, if it depends on how big that spine split is on the comic. So it says slight, so I'm going to assume that's a fairly small spine split. Usually it's on the edges. It's hard to tell where the spine split is on this comic, just looking at it, but it could reduce it all the way down to a 3.5. The restored value is worth about 600, but the unrestored, if I remove the restoration and got that blue label, maybe I'd reduce the value down to 575. So in a way, removing the restoration might not be a good idea. However, if it's a small spine split where it's very negligible, it might be worth doing, and maybe I could get a 5, or 5.5 even, and then you get a blue label and be worth a lot more than the purple label version of it. So it's one of those things, like, this is where buying restored, got to be a little bit careful. And do you want to take that risk of trying to figure out what that restoration has done to the book? And based on the notes, like when I see the notes, it doesn't look like much restoration has been done. It probably is just a little bit like right in here was a little bit of a spine split. So it might be the case that it could get that higher grade. So I'm not the kind of person that's going to crack out a book, but if somebody buys this in the future from me, they could take that risk and maybe get a blue label and actually maybe double their money. So it's one of those things that's really kind of cool about restored comics, where you can get this kind of risk, a bit of a dice toss, whether you're going to get a good deal or a bad deal based on removing that restoration. So the time when you make that gamble is always on the slight restoration. Never bother trying to unrestore, it sounds so weird, unrestore a higher restoration. If it's a moderate restoration or extensive restoration, there is no way that book is ever going to be a blue label. And it's just not worth the amount of damage that you would have to do to the book to get it to that unrestored level. You might be just with a little rag afterwards, because you'd have to remove so much once it's in that moderate to extensive category. So that's just a word of warning. Don't try it with the higher restorations. If it's maybe a little bit of color touch or maybe a little bit of glue, there is a possibility that you can unrestore it and get that blue label. So this is another one of my series. I recommend you check out the other videos in this series, because each video I kind of show a little bit more in terms of what you can learn from buying restored comics. And I hope you enjoy these videos. Check out my other videos as well. And thanks for watching. Bye.